The Age of Aquarius isn't coming. It's already here, and it didn't ask for your permission. While you were waiting for the stars to align or astrologers to make it official, the real shift slipped in unnoticed. It didn't arrive with fanfare or cosmic announcements. It came like a new frequency humming in the background, quiet but undeniable. No countdown, no fireworks. Just a subtle reordering of everything underneath the surface of your reality. And if you felt it, that strange disconnection from old routines, that internal tension that doesn't have a name, that sudden clarity that comes and goes like a flash of light, you're not alone. You didn't miss the beginning. You are the beginning. This isn't a theory, a prediction, or a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. It's already happening, in your sleep, your thoughts, your biology. This isn't astrology. This is activation. And if you've been feeling it, this video isn't information. It's confirmation. They told you the Age of Aquarius would come with signs in the sky. A great alignment, a cosmic timestamp, a moment you could circle on a calendar. But the real shift didn't wait for astrologers or approval. It didn't care about tradition. It didn't ask anyone's permission. While people were busy looking up, the revolution arrived through something far more subtle: your nervous system. You didn't read about it in the news. You felt it in your body, in the quiet moments between tasks, in the heaviness you couldn't explain, in the restlessness that made everything familiar feel suddenly fake. You tried to blame it on stress, or burnout, or too much screen time, but it wasn't any of that. Something changed, and you felt it before you had words for it. This new energy didn't show up with a roar. It whispered in the silence. It crept in through ordinary days and turned the volume down on everything that used to hold your attention. You found yourself withdrawing without knowing why. You started craving solitude, reflection, and truth. And even if you couldn't articulate what was happening, you knew something was dissolving. Some structure inside you was being dismantled and replaced with something you hadn't yet seen. And here's the thing. That's not regression. That's evolution. The Age of Aquarius isn't arriving. It's unfolding through you. That pressure in your chest, that ache in your gut, that feeling like you're too awake in a world still half asleep, that's the recalibration. You were tuned to one frequency your whole life, and now you're being synced to something cleaner, faster, quieter. It doesn't roar, it resonates. And it's not just physical, it's emotional. People are ending relationships without needing dramatic reasons. Careers that once felt fulfilling now feel hollow. Belief systems that used to define your identity are falling away like dead leaves. You're not losing your mind. You're losing the version of you that was built to survive in the old energy. Some things can't be said out loud, not here. That's why we created Insights Academy, our free newsletter. Sign up using the link below and get a copy of the Kybalion while it's still available. You may have already noticed this new frequency doesn't respond to force. It responds to alignment. You can't push your way through it. You have to surrender to it. The more you fight to hold on to what no longer fits, the more you'll feel the friction. But when you let go, really let go, something strange happens. You don't fall, you land. What you're sensing right now isn't anxiety. It's not a failure. It's not confusion. It's resonance. You're no longer in tune with the version of reality you were conditioned to accept. That version was based on control, repetition, and predictability. The new one is fluid, non-linear, and intuitive. It moves differently. It listens differently. It speaks in symbols, sensations, and synchrony. And the reason it feels so quiet, because you're still calibrating to a world that doesn't scream for your attention. The Aquarian age doesn't announce itself through noise. It enters through awareness. And awareness requires space, mental, emotional, spiritual. That space you've been carving out lately, even if you don't know why, that's not you disconnecting. That's you returning. You don't need to understand every detail right now. You just need to notice. Notice what no longer fits. Notice what keeps pulling at you. Notice where the tension lives and where the flow begins. Because whether you realize it or not, you're already inside the shift. You're already learning the language of this new age, and soon you'll begin to speak it without even trying. Something has felt off lately, hasn't it? Like your body isn't syncing with the world the way it used to. You feel overstimulated by things that once felt normal. Lights too bright, conversations too loud, even silence too heavy. It's like your senses are turned up past 10, but your energy's been cut in half. You find yourself exhausted without reason, buzzing internally with no outlet, flooded with thoughts that don't even feel like yours. And the strangest part? None of it shows up on tests. No diagnosis, just a shrug, and the suggestion to rest more, stress less, take deeper breaths. But this isn't stress. It's not burnout. You're not broken. You're upgrading. What you're experiencing is the physical toll of a metaphysical shift. Your nervous system, the very architecture of how you experience reality, is being retuned. The Aquarian frequency doesn't just change how you think. It changes how you process everything. Emotionally, psychologically, biologically. You're not malfunctioning. You're adapting to a different kind of signal. Think of it this way. You've been running on one type of software your whole life. That old program was designed for a world that rewarded linear thinking, routine, predictability. It was dense, heavy, slower. It told you to ignore your gut, follow the script, and stay between the lines. But that world is dissolving, and your old operating system is struggling to keep up. That's why things that used to work, habits, routines, thought patterns, suddenly feel unnatural, even harmful. This is what it feels like when your internal coding is being rewritten in real time. The new frequency, this Aquarian bandwidth, is sharper, faster, cleaner. It requires presence over planning, intuition over intellect, and your nervous system is trying to adjust. That buzzing in your chest, the sudden fatigue that drops like a wave mid-conversation, the hypersensitivity to sound, light, energy. It's not random. It's not a weakness. It's your biology learning to receive more subtle information. You're not overwhelmed because you're fragile. You're overwhelmed because your awareness is expanding faster than your system was trained to handle. And that's exactly the point. The world you were trained for is no longer the one you're in. People who are sensitive, those who've always felt a little too much, too deeply, are often the first to feel this shift. Not because they're unstable, but because they're built for this level of nuance. They are the tuning forks of this timeline. If you've been emotional lately for no clear reason, unable to explain why certain spaces feel oppressive or why some conversations leave you depleted, it's because your system is responding to signals beyond the obvious. You're no longer just reacting to what's being said, you're resonating with what's being carried, and this shift can feel destabilizing, like your body is betraying you. But what's actually happening is deeper than betrayal. It's reorientation. Your internal compass is swinging away from control and back toward coherence. You're not losing balance. You're learning a new kind of equilibrium. Don't be surprised if you suddenly find it hard to tolerate the things you used to endure. People, environments, even foods. You're not becoming picky. You're becoming precise. Aquarian energy doesn't tolerate noise for the sake of comfort. It demands clarity. And your body, your cells, your nerves, your breath, is becoming more honest about what is and isn't aligned. This is why rest feels different now. It's no longer about escaping exhaustion. It's about integrating frequency. This is why your dreams are wilder, more vivid, more instructive. Your subconscious is speaking in archetypes now. This is why your emotions feel unfiltered. They're not asking to be fixed. They're asking to be heard. If you've been trying to get back to normal, stop. Normal isn't coming back. And deep down, you know you don't want it to. That version of normal required you to suppress your instincts, to numb your senses, to ignore the quiet truths that kept knocking from inside. But this new world, it wants you raw, awake, tuned. You are not breaking down. You are being reconfigured. And once your nervous system fully syncs to this new field, you'll look back at this time, not with resentment, but with awe. Because what you're living through isn't chaos. It's the calibration of something extraordinary. And you, whether you realize it or not, are one of the first to feel it. You've probably noticed it by now. The way time slips through your fingers. You wake up, blink, and it's already evening. Days blur into each other. Weeks feel like minutes, but a single hour can stretch into eternity. You keep checking the clock, expecting it to match your internal rhythm, and it doesn't. Time has lost its shape. And it's not just you. This is happening collectively. But what no one is telling you is that this isn't burnout, distraction, or attention fatigue. This is temporal recalibration. The Age of Aquarius doesn't operate on linear time. It doesn't unfold in neat boxes on a calendar, or obey the rigid structure of the 9-to-5 grind. It pulses, stretches, folds. It moves like breath, expanding, contracting. It listens to resonance, not routine. And for those syncing with it, time no longer feels like a path. It feels like a wave. You're not living by the clock anymore. You're riding frequency. This is why everything structured feels heavy now. Schedules feel oppressive. Deadlines feel artificial. You were trained your whole life to believe time was something outside of you. Something that ruled you. Something to chase. Be on time. Don't waste time. Time is money. But that framework was built for a different world. A mechanical one. A world where control and productivity were currency. That's not the world you're entering. In this new energy, alignment determines speed. And when you're aligned, things happen fast. Instant clarity, rapid creation. Projects that should have taken months unfold in a single day. Not because you're hustling harder, but because resistance has dissolved. The delay between thought and manifestation collapses. You think it, you feel it, and suddenly, it's here. But here's the paradox. When you're out of sync with the new frequency, time punishes. It slows down, thickens. You feel stuck, even though the days keep moving. You loop old patterns. You relive the same argument, the same self-doubt, the same dead-end thoughts. This is not a glitch. It's a signal. When time feels cruel, it's trying to tell you something. You're operating on expired settings. Aquarian time is attuned to presence, not performance. That's why rushing feels wrong. Why multitasking feels like static in your mind. Why you can't tolerate being late, even though clocks seem irrelevant. You're syncing with inner timing now, with intuition, with flow. Think about the moments when everything just worked, when you were in the right place, met the right person, had the right thought at the exact right time. That wasn't luck. That was you riding a higher frequency, a different timeline, one that isn't mapped by logic, but by alignment. This is the gift of temporal recalibration. It's not just about speed, it's about clarity. In this space, you stop doing things just to keep up. You stop forcing timelines that don't feel alive. You begin to trust that if something isn't happening right now, maybe it's not because you're lazy or unfocused. Maybe it's because it's not the right moment in your personal wave. And when that moment does arrive, you'll know, you'll act, and it will move. This is also why people around you might seem disoriented. Some are still clinging to the old clock. They're measuring success by how early they wake up, how much they produce, how full their planner is. And yet, inside, they feel empty, because time doesn't validate the Aquarian soul. Resonance does. And yes, it's destabilizing. The old rules were clear, even if they were soul-crushing. This new mode, it asks you to feel, to listen, to trust yourself in a way that no one ever taught you. But this is what evolution feels like. The rules dissolve, the structure softens. What's left is your raw awareness, syncing to the rhythm of something bigger. You're not running out of time. You're catching up to yourself. You're no longer navigating time by numbers. You're navigating it by knowing. And once you allow that shift to root itself inside you, time becomes a tool, not a master. A canvas, not a cage. It expands for what aligns. It collapses for what doesn't. And when you finally stop measuring time the old way, you'll realize you're not behind. You're right on time for the new world that's unfolding through you. Something's shifted in how we speak to one another, though most people haven't fully noticed it yet. Words aren't landing the way they used to. Sometimes they feel like noise. Other times, they hit like lightning. Conversations that once felt casual now feel loaded with invisible meaning. You hear someone say one thing, but feel another truth humming underneath. You walk into a room and the tension is louder than the chatter. This isn't just emotional intelligence. This is frequency awareness. You're no longer just hearing people, you're decoding them. This is part of the Aquarian shift most won't talk about, because it bypasses logic. It doesn't make sense to a mind raised on facts, structure, and surface-level thinking. But deep down, you know it's real. You know when someone's lying, even if their tone is perfect. You know when something's off, even if there's no evidence. It's not paranoia, it's perception. You're reading the energy beneath the sentence, the resonance behind the posture. And it's not a skill you learned, it's a channel you've opened. In this new frequency, communication is less about what's said and more about what's transmitted. Thoughts carry charge. Intentions ripple outward. The subtext has become the main text. And as you tune in more, you'll find that language as we've known it becomes almost clumsy. It stumbles under the weight of truth. That's why so many people are struggling to express themselves right now. The words feel too small, too slow, too artificial for what they're actually trying to share. And yet, at the same time, you're understanding people faster than ever before. A look, a pause, a symbol, a dream. These are the new syntax. These are the upgraded modes of expression. Because Aquarian communication isn't linear. It's symbolic. It's energetic. It's vibrational. Think about it. Why do you feel more when you see an image than when you read a paragraph? Why does one song lyric haunt you while 1,000 motivational posts do nothing? Why do dreams speak in riddles but leave you changed? Because the future doesn't communicate in paragraphs. It communicates in patterns. Symbols bypass the filters. Frequency doesn't ask for permission. It goes straight to the system. This is why conversations have started feeling different. Some feel like codes unlocking you. Others feel like static or interference. You're not imagining that shift. You're feeling the coherence, or the lack of it. The people you once vibed with might now feel hollow. Others you barely knew may suddenly feel electric. That's not mood. That's magnetic field alignment. That's your soul recognizing resonance. And here's the wild part. You're doing it too. You're transmitting, without trying. Every time you speak from clarity instead of performance. Every time you pause instead of react. Every time you hold space instead of filling it. You're sending a signal, and people feel it. Even if they don't understand it consciously, something in them shifts. Not because of what you said, but because of how you said it. Or sometimes, because you didn't say anything at all. This is the Aquarian code. It travels through stillness, through presence, through coherence. It doesn't shout, it doesn't sell, it simply resonates. And the more in tune you are with yourself, the more precise your signal becomes. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your alignment speaks louder than any argument. You don't need to be right, you just need to be real. It's time to stop trying to articulate everything in perfect sentences. Start noticing what your presence is saying, what your energy is whispering, what your silences are carrying. Because in this new age, your words are just the echo. The signal is who you are before you open your mouth. The future is vibrational. The language is resonance. And you're already fluent. You just haven't realized it yet. You've been taught your entire life that to make an impact, you have to be loud. That to lead, you need a stage, a platform, a following. That change comes from visibility, and if no one sees you, then what you're doing must not matter. But that's not how the Age of Aquarius works. In this frequency, influence doesn't come from volume. It comes from coherence, and coherence is invisible until it isn't. You don't have to try to lead. If you're aligned, you're already leading. You don't have to speak to be heard. If your energy is clear, people will feel it long before they understand why. That strange magnetism you've noticed lately, the way people confide in you out of nowhere, the way strangers seem to orbit your calm, that's not a coincidence. That's resonance. You are the transmission, and your signal is stronger than you've been led to believe. This age responds to presence, not performance. In the old world, you had to prove yourself. You had to hustle, shout, post, push. The more polished you looked, the more credible you became. But that was a system obsessed with image. The Aquarian energy dismantles image. It pierces through performance and locks onto frequency. That means people don't need to know your resume to feel your truth. They don't need your credentials. They need your coherence. And here's the paradox. The more sensitive you become, the stronger your transmission gets. Not despite your sensitivity, but because of it. You may have spent years trying to toughen up, quiet down, fit in, take up less space. But what if the very things you tried to fix were the tools you were meant to use? What if your sensitivity was never a flaw, but an antenna? The world is changing in ways that don't make headlines. It's happening in the subtle shifts of energy, in people stepping out of patterns they can't explain, in a quiet refusal to play by rules that no longer feel alive. And often, it's people like you, those who've always felt too much, who go first. You don't do it for praise. You don't even always realize you're doing it. But your clarity destabilizes the systems around you. Your authenticity makes the old scripts fall apart, not because you attack them, but because you no longer resonate with them. This is why you feel tired after walking into certain spaces. It's why you suddenly can't tolerate small talk or empty noise. It's not social anxiety. It's signal interference. You're broadcasting a different frequency now, and your system is rejecting what doesn't match. That rejection isn't judgment. It's wisdom. It's alignment without explanation. The world you're walking into doesn't need you to justify your truth. It just needs you to hold it. You may never stand on a podium. You might not go viral. But your impact will be measured in ways that are invisible to most. A conversation that changes someone's trajectory. A boundary that shifts a lineage. A moment of presence that grounds an entire room. These aren't small things. These are the mechanics of evolution. This is how frequency spreads. The Age of Aquarius isn't looking for idols. It's looking for stabilizers, for tuning forks, for people who can hold their frequency no matter what noise surrounds them. That might be you, especially if you've always felt out of place in the old system. Especially if you've always questioned what everyone else seemed to accept. Especially if you've always sensed that there was something inside you that didn't match the world you were handed. You're not invisible. You're just subtle, and subtle is how transformation begins. Quietly, precisely, relentlessly. So, if you've been waiting for someone to tell you you're allowed to lead, stop waiting. The truth is, you already are, and the world is tuning to your signal, even if it doesn't know your name yet. There's a feeling that's been creeping into your life, quiet but persistent, a sense that something's out of place, even when everything looks fine on the surface. You're doing what you were told would bring you satisfaction, and yet there's a dull ache, a quiet hunger, a pull you can't explain. It's not depression, it's not confusion. It's something older, something deeper. It's memory, not of the past, but of the truth, your original truth, before the conditioning, before the edits, before the world told you who you had to become. You're not just growing, you're remembering. And it's uncomfortable because you're trying to live an upgraded existence on a blueprint that was never meant to fit this version of you. The misalignment is what you've been calling anxiety. That tension in your chest, that resistance in your bones, it's the sound of your inner system rejecting what was never truly yours. And you don't need a diagnosis for that. You need clarity. This isn't about reinventing yourself. That's the old world's language. Build your brand, redesign your image, become someone. But you were never meant to become. You were meant to remember. You were meant to return to the pattern that existed before the world trained you to ignore it. And it's not as far away as it seems. It lives beneath the noise. It hums beneath the routine. It speaks in the choices you make when no one's watching. Every time you say no to what drains you, every time you walk away from something that once felt safe but now feels false, every time you choose quiet over performance, alignment over obligation, that's your blueprint waking up. And the more you honor that pull, the louder it gets. You might not be able to explain why certain things no longer feel right, why a job that once excited you now feels like a cage, why relationships that used to define you now feel foreign. You're not broken. You're just not resonating with the version of yourself that was built in response to survival. You're being called back to the version that was born to create, to shift, to transmit. And yes, this remembering comes with grief, not just for what you've lost, but for how long you lived disconnected from your own design. But grief is not regression. It's the gateway to liberation. You have to mourn the false before you can fully receive the real. This is also why it can feel like your life is falling apart while something deeper is falling into place. Old timelines are collapsing. Identities are dissolving. Desires are shifting. And what remains isn't chaos. It's clarity. Not immediate, not clean, but undeniably real. You're not being punished. You're being refined. Because the version of you that's rising can't carry the weight of a story that was never yours. You're not here to play a role. You're here to live a frequency. And that frequency can't be faked. It can only be remembered. So if you've been wondering why everything familiar feels so distant lately, why even your own reflection feels like a stranger some days, it's not disconnection. It's reconfiguration. You're stepping out of the costume the world applauded and back into the skin of your soul. This isn't about rejecting the past. It's about reclaiming what it tried to bury. It's about picking up the pieces that still feel alive and leaving the rest without guilt. You're not betraying anyone by choosing yourself. You're honoring the blueprint that came before every version of you they tried to shape. And no, it won't make sense to most people. They'll ask why you're walking away from comfort, from certainty, from what looked like success. You don't need to justify it. Their path doesn't require your compromise. You're not on the same frequency anymore, and that's not arrogance, it's alignment. Because the truth is, this shift you're in, it's not a phase, it's not a spiritual trend. It's the quiet roar of remembrance echoing through your cells. And the more you surrender to it, the more you'll find that what's waiting on the other side isn't a new version of you. It's the real one, finally allowed to come home. Power doesn't look like it used to. It doesn't wear the same suits, speak in the same polished voices, or sit in the same rooms. The kind of power that shaped the old world, control through force, dominance through hierarchy, attention through noise, is quietly being replaced. Not with protests or revolutions, but with presence, with clarity, with resonance. That's what the Age of Aquarius is ushering in, and it's not asking for recognition. It's asking for embodiment. This new form of leadership doesn't need titles or platforms. It doesn't announce itself. It simply is. It walks into a room and shifts the frequency without speaking. It doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It doesn't demand loyalty. It creates coherence. And coherence is more contagious than charisma ever was. You might have already felt this shift inside yourself, an urge to lead in a way that has nothing to do with leading anyone at all. A quiet confidence that rises when you're alone. A sense of responsibility that doesn't come from ego but from knowing. Not knowledge, not theory. Knowing, like something ancient is pulsing through you. Not to dominate, but to harmonize. And this is what no one tells you about stepping into Aquarian leadership. It doesn't come with applause. It often comes with isolation. Because when you operate from frequency instead of force, you unsettle systems that still run on noise. People might not understand what you're doing. You may not even fully understand it yourself. But the effect is undeniable. The energy shifts. The old narrative dissolves. People breathe differently around you, not because you told them to, but because your presence gave them permission. This isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the clearest signal. That clarity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integration, from doing the inner work that most avoid, from sitting with your contradictions instead of hiding them. from allowing truth to shape you more than image ever could. And when you do that, when you become coherent, people feel it, even if they don't know why. And maybe you've always felt like you weren't built for traditional leadership. Maybe you were told you're too quiet, too intense, too sensitive, too unpredictable. But what if all those qualities were exactly what made you the perfect transmitter for a new paradigm? What if your sensitivity wasn't a burden, but a frequency tuner? What if your inability to tolerate falsehood was your internal compass, pushing you towards something real? Because this shift we're in, it doesn't need more authorities. It needs initiators, not gurus, not influencers. Initiators, people who embody what others haven't yet found language for. People who move ahead of the collective curve, not because they're superior, but because they're listening deeply, constantly. And they're not waiting for consensus. They're creating coherence. If any part of you has ever wondered why you always saw things before others did, why you picked up on patterns that no one else seemed to notice, why you felt out of sync with timelines that made sense on paper, that wasn't dysfunction. That was foresight. That was frequency recognition. That was leadership in its rawest, most Aquarian form. You don't need permission to step into that. In fact, no one is going to give it to you. You have to choose it, quietly, consistently, without needing a spotlight, because the world doesn't need more spotlights. It needs more lighthouses. And the people who build them often do so in silence, far from the noise, trusting that their light will reach the ones who are ready to see it. So if you felt the pull to lead differently, to hold space instead of take it, to guide through resonance instead of rules, to show instead of sell, don't ignore it. That's not your imagination. That's the new template forming itself inside you. And you're not early. You're right on time. The world just hasn't caught up to your frequency yet. For most of your life, you were told to look outside yourself for the answers. The map was always out there, written in books, explained by teachers, passed down by experts, interpreted by others. You were taught to wait for signs, for instructions, for someone wiser to tell you when the future would begin. But the real shift was never going to come from out there. It was always coded into you. And now, finally, it's activating. This isn't about planetary alignments or age-old prophecies. This is about your biology syncing to a different rhythm, your mind deconditioning from inherited structures, and your soul remembering what it came here to transmit. The Age of Aquarius isn't a date on the calendar. It's a consciousness you carry. And it's not waiting for you to be ready. It's already unfolding inside your breath, your decisions, your frequency. If you've been feeling the pressure to become something, let it go. You don't need to become anything. You just need to strip away everything you were never meant to be. The Aquarian age doesn't ask you to hustle. It asks you to attune. It doesn't reward followers. It activates transmitters. It doesn't value consistency for the sake of stability. It values truth, even if it's inconsistent, even if it breaks everything open. The most radical thing you can do in this age is return to yourself. Not the version of you that fits into other people's expectations, but the one that pulses with unfiltered clarity. The one that makes decisions before logic has time to argue. The one that knows when to move and when to pause, when to speak and when to simply hold the signal. Because that's the difference now. You're not reacting to the world. You're informing it. You're not chasing time, you're shaping it. And the choices you make from this level of awareness don't just affect you, they ripple into the collective. Every time you choose presence over performance, alignment over approval, silence over scrambling, you're broadcasting something the world desperately needs: a stable frequency. People will ask you how you knew, how you felt it before anyone said it out loud, how you left what wasn't working without proof of what would replace it. And you might not have words for them. Because this shift doesn't speak in paragraphs. It speaks in knowing. It speaks in magnetic pull, in gut responses, in quiet certainties that make no sense but feel immovable. You're not waiting for the Age of Aquarius. You're living it. Not as an event, but as an embodiment, not through theory, but through presence. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about upgrading how you exist within it, about seeing through the scripts and choosing the signals instead. And no, not everyone will get it. Some are still waiting for the confirmation to come from a voice of authority, from a platform with credentials, from a system that validates their awakening with a certificate. But you're not here for that. You're not here to be validated. You're here to be real. The Age of Aquarius doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be attuned, to live with such clarity that people feel safer in your presence without knowing why, to hold your alignment like a tuning fork, steady, quiet, unshakable. That's how the new world stabilizes. Not through declarations, through frequency. You're not watching this because you stumbled across it. You're here because part of you already knew. And once you see it, once you feel it, there's no going back. Because now you know, the Age of Aquarius isn't a future, it's a frequency, and you're the one transmitting it. You've felt it. You've questioned it. You've listened to that quiet pull inside you, the one that didn't ask for logic or permission. Now it's time to embody it. The Age of Aquarius is not a concept to believe in. It's a current to align with. It's not waiting to arrive. It's waiting to be anchored through you. This shift isn't something you watch happen from the outside. It's not an era you live in. It's a state you live as. And the only real task now is to integrate what you already know. Because at this point, your soul doesn't need convincing. It needs clarity. Your job is not to gather more data. It's to act from resonance. And that means letting go of what no longer fits, even if it still looks good on paper. It means trusting timing that can't be measured, following signs that don't come from maps, and showing up in a world that won't always understand what you're doing. This is the new embodiment. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, steady, relentless. It's a refusal to perform, a commitment to presence. It's waking up every day and asking not, what do I need to prove? But, what do I need to align with? It's understanding that your decisions are no longer personal, they're vibrational. They don't just shape your life, they shape the field around you. You've likely already begun doing this without even realizing. Saying no without guilt. Resting when your system says pause, not when the schedule says stop. Creating without asking if it will be profitable. Speaking truths even when they tremble in your throat. These are not small acts. These are codes. And every time you choose to honor your frequency over the noise, you make it easier for others to do the same. This is how the new world emerges, not from revolutions on the surface, but from coherence beneath it. It doesn't erupt. It harmonizes. And the more you live in tune with your internal rhythm, the more you become a stabilizer for the collective dissonance. There will still be days where you question everything, where you feel disconnected, out of place, out of time. Let that be okay. The system you came from trained you to doubt yourself the moment things didn't make sense. But the system you're moving into honors mystery. It doesn't rush answers. It trusts the unfolding. So if you feel lost, remember, you're not behind. You're in between. And in that in-between space, magic lives. It's where the rewiring happens, where the new paths open, where the old identities dissolve so the true self can emerge, not as an idea, but as a lived experience, not as a concept, but as a field. You are the field now, not the map, not the route, the field. And the more honestly you live inside that truth, the more you make it safe for others to drop the performance and do the same. There is no official marker for when the Age of Aquarius began. No ceremony, no switch flipped. That's why so many people missed it. They were waiting for an announcement. But what arrived was not a date. It was a frequency. And what changes this world isn't who predicted it first. It's who embodied it deepest. So when someone asks you what to do now, don't tell them what to believe. Show them how you move, how you hold silence like a language, how you walk away from what doesn't fit, not in protest, but in peace. That's how we change things, not through argument, but through resonance. Not through explanation, but through example. If you haven't joined Insights Academy yet, you're missing more than content. You're missing the deeper signals we can't always share here. Sign up now using the link below, and you'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, because some transmissions belong in your hands, not on your feed. The world is shifting. It's not waiting for everyone to catch up. But if you're here, you're not late. You're part of the signal. You're not just seeing the change. You are the change. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."